All right, so I'm here to help you out. If you haven't seen and you haven't paid attention, in the ArcGIS API for JavaScript, all of the task classes, like query task, geometry service, print task, route task, all that stuff is going away in the next release, 4.24. They've all been deprecated for a while, since like 4.19. So it's been like a year that we've been talking about deprecating all these task classes. It was in the release notes. There's been deprecation messages all across the board. So I'm here to give you a heads up in case you haven't migrated yet. Now's the time to start migrating. There's a blog post up on the Esri blogs called "Rest is Up to the Task." Noah wrote this. I know my name's on here. I only did a couple sentences here and there, but Noah did all this work. He did a great job in this post. He outlines all the stuff that's been updated, right? We're moving over to the Esri REST folder. These are simple functional modules. All they take is a URL and some options to do the same thing you would do with the task, right? Now, I suggest you go read the blog post, check it out. There's a few reasons we did this. One of them is to simplify code and simplify your bundling with build tools. Because when you use something like geometry service and you instantiate that, you get all these methods you may never use, right? So if you just use tree shaking, like there's a sample down here that does something like that, like this one here for the query, right? If you do tree shaking here and you do this query, you only use that query. You don't use other methods or anything that you don't want to use. So that was in the release notes way back when. And I think there's actually a note for 4.23 about this, but like I said, it's been in the deprecation notices. When you use them, you should have gotten messages telling you they're going to go away. So what exactly is leaving? This whole folder is going away. Everything's been moved up to Esri REST. Things like closest facility, right? So you look at the solve method, takes a URL, takes some parameters, and of course the request options if you need to override anything. Geometry service, another one. You just import the particular methods you want to use and take those, right? We kind of try to simplify that a little bit. Same goes for like locator, which is another popular one you're going to bring, like address to locations, location to address type stuff. There is a print, and you're probably not using query too much. And this comes up every now and then. I actually did make a small note here in the documentation for the print somewhere. Here we go. So it should be noted that for the query modules actually do take the layer URL. It's like a feature service or a map service to do queries on them. So you're really better off using the methods are already available on the feature layer. I should mention that one of the reasons you want to use the query methods on the layer is that it already knows what the capabilities of the layer are. So you don't have to figure those kind of nuances out yourself running the query methods. Just use the feature layer to do the queries and you're good to go. Right, so if you go to something like feature layer here, the feature layer already has a bunch of methods for query. We've got query attachments, query extent, feature count features, object IDs, related features, and so on and so forth, right? You're much better off using those to do your queries because depending if you're using a particular server or something like that, there might be some weirdness behind the scenes that these methods here on the layer will take into account. And you're already using the layer most likely anyway. You're not querying a service without probably using the layer at all, not in your regular mapping apps. So it's highly suggested that you just use the query methods on the layer itself. And if using a map service, you can use sublayer.createFeatureLayer to get a feature layer from that. You never have to load it, but you can query it and do stuff against it, right? If that's what you want to do. So I'm going to look over like print tasks and look at how I might move something like that. So let me give myself some room here. And if you don't mind, I'm going to make this a little smaller so I can actually see what I'm doing. And let me look at what something like Esri REST print is going to look like. Right, so if I'm going to migrate away from print task here, I'll just call this my print URL. Oops, already had that. Okay, so there's my print URL that I want to use. And instead of saying print task, I'm going to say print, and I believe it's called execute methods. Yeah, execute. So I'm going to execute the print URL, pass my parameters, and it should still work. There we go. And there's a message with the URL to the results. If I take that, there we go. And there is my print result from the new print module that, again, very similar, except instead of instantiating a task, I just run the method, pass it the URL. Print task isn't really a good example of the tree shaking capabilities you get. Like I said, something like the geoprocessor, I'm sorry, something like the geometry service is really going to be highlighting the tree shaking capabilities you're going to get out of that. And it's just a better pattern you can use in the API, right? So, like I said, these are all going away in the 4.24 release. There are also some helper methods here on the portal object. Portal, create closest facility, create geometry service, and so on and so forth. The way you want to do that now is that what you're going to do is that this actually was always been there in the portal. Is if we come over here to Esri portal, and come to properties, it's always had this object on here called helper services. And helper services has always had URLs for particular utility services that you have available on your portal. Things like a print service, geometry service, the locator service. There are a couple of more, I believe. The route service. I can't necessarily remember what else. So, like, it looks like this: like portal helper services route that URL, right? So that's how you would do it for the route services. This one is showing how you get the print SaaS services off of the portal object itself. So it's all under helper services. And I think this might vary depending on like the version of the server or what you might have enabled on your enterprise server, but online should always be the same stuff you've defined for your portal, right? So this is how you would do it now. You're not going to create those tasks anymore. You just execute these methods from the REST module that we provide. You can actually pull the URLs off the portal object itself, right? So that's the pattern you would use moving forward. So, like I said, like the TLDR here says, the best time to update from task to REST was 3 releases ago. The second best time is now. If you want to test this out today, when this video comes out, the query task has already been removed in the next release, which is the next version of the API, which will be what 4.24 will be. All the other tasks are going to be removed this week, the week of April 18th. So those will be gone some point this week in the next release as well. So you can try it out, see if your app breaks, and then go ahead and do a little bit of refactoring and migrating stuff. It's not difficult. It's just, like I said, it's mostly just refactoring some stuff around, moving things here and there. If you have questions, feel free to ask on the Esri community. If you get stuck somewhere or something like that, let us know. No big deal. If you got questions, drop them below. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Thank you. I just want to let you know that I've started a new podcast called The Bounding Box, where I'll be talking about geo development, web development, and everything in between. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and plenty of other places that you can find podcasts. There are a few episodes available now. We are in a bi-weekly schedule, so every other week. I'll be having guests on talking about various topics. So please tune in, please subscribe, and let me know what you think. Thank you.